All right. So, do you need to know how to kind of value an investment, right? Specifically from the philosophy of kind of fundamentals or value investing, right? And with this, it's time for kind of the second Bible, we'll say, of value investing. At least that's what I got from it, from what I've heard from other people, it being recommended and stuff. What I'm talking about is the boat anchor called Security Analysis by Benjamin Graham and David L. Dodd, right? And so it's pretty big. It's over 700 pages of very, very in-depth everything. And I'll go into more specifics on what exactly you can find in it in a second. But why read it to begin with, right? So my philosophy or the way I kind of think about it, especially with money, is no one cares about your finances and your family's future more than you do, right? And so, like, they don't. The government doesn't care. Your employer doesn't care nowhere near as much as you will, right? Because you actually have to live it. That being said, Graham's teachings have stood the test of time and also across a wide variety and a wide diversity of market conditions, countries, and asset classes, right? And that's taking from reviews of the book itself from very well-known people, especially in the space, and I'll name a few of them in a minute, right? And so, again, it's just stuff you need to learn, right? At least to certain degrees, depending on how involved you want to be, and kind of more on that, not just like how much you want to learn or need to learn based on how involved you want to be and your financial future in general. I kind of point to a book review I already did of The Intelligent Investor, and I'll put that as a card at some point in the video. It'll be on the end screen for sure. But that's there as well. So who is Benjamin Graham? He's kind of known as the founder of value investing, and then him and David Dodd, right, were colleagues at Columbia University, right, and they've done a whole lot of stuff. I went more in depth on them in the Intelligent Investor video, so I'll kind of leave that up in there. They're kind of known as the, how to say it, mentor or whatever of Warren Buffett, right? That's the philosophy I'm talking about, right? So the security analysis one, this one, was first published in 1934. The one that I have, is the sixth edition, which was published in 2009. And I believe there's a seventh one that just came out sometime in the 2020s. I don't remember off the top of my head, in the past few years. But I'm pretty sure there's one. If there is, I'll probably link. If there's a seventh edition, it'll be linked in the description below. Either way, the newest version will be there, right? So where are you going to find this? So to quote, or what are you going to find in this? If I could speak this morning. So to quote directly, provided generations, or this book specifically, provided generations of investors with timeless value investing philosophy and techniques of Benjamin Graham and David L. Dodd. This one also includes commentary from other more contemporary kind of giants in the space, and just kind of listed off. You have Seth A. Klarman, James Grant, who I've listened to a lot of podcasts from him as he was interviewed by some of the people that I follow in general. Roger Lowenstein, Howard S. Marks, J. Ezru American, sorry for mispronouncing it, Bruce Berkowitz, Glenn H. Greenberg, Bruce Greenwald, David Abrams, Thomas A. Russo, right? Like I said, there's quite a few, and they're basically the beginning of each kind of section. They have their own pretty significant commentary, right? Basically they write the introductions to each part, and so it's kind of it's a general overview of what Graham and Dodd are going to be saying in their text itself, which is more granular and like actual numbers, like what PE ratio should you look for, that sort of thing. with respect to certain industries, like that kind of thing, certain industries, what specific metrics to look for, that kind of thing, right? So to take a few more quotes, so kind of defining value investing. So value investing today, as in the era of Graham and Dodd, is the practice of purchasing securities or assets for less than they are worth, the proverbial dollar for 50 cents, right? This is in the preface, right? Also, a comprehensive investment philosophy that emphasizes the need to perform in-depth fundamental analysis, pursue long-term investment results, limit risk, and resist crowd psychology. I wrote these notes really quick, so I apparently need to slow down a lot, right? And so that's kind of describing the philosophy of this in general. Finally, kind of the chief problem for this work and the reason they wrote this is Graham's own words. So the chief problem he was trying to solve was one of perspective, right? So to blend the divergent experiences of the recent and remoter past into a synthesis which will stand the test of the ever enigmatic future, right? And that's the end of his own preface to the book, right? And so with that being said, let me get to the table of contents real quick to give you guys the actual like parts and stuff and specifically what to look for. So kind of the first part is called Survey and Approach. And again, it's more of kind of definitions of things, like also like where you can find certain information, what reports to look at, see fundamental elements in the problem of analysis, the actual the way, kind of, I guess, defining the lens in which you're actually looking at these things, keeping in mind the purpose for it and that sort of thing. And from there, classifying the different kinds of securities, right? So that basically what would be more beneficial for which purpose, right? And kind of keeping that in mind. Also, the distinctions between investment and speculation. That's also something he goes in depth on, or I guess they go in depth on in The Intelligent Investor, right? Something you need to be aware of at all times. Like you can't alternate between the two. If you buy a specific stock, just as an example, or whatever it may be, whether it's some corporate bond, whatever, insert investment. If you did it for for investment purposes per their definition, and they go very in depth in this, right? You need to stay there, right? You can't suddenly like, oh, the price goes up dramatically for whatever reason, whatever, sell it like you're speculating and so on. And there's more nuanced definitions. That's not the purpose of this video. So I'm kind of barely touching on it and kind of doing a little bit of a rabbit hole, but regardless, right? The second part is fixed value investments. So a lot of the different kinds of bonds, so specific standards for them. And there are 4 chapters. Looks like a total of 40-something pages on specific standards for bonds. And I don't know about the newest version, if there is one, but this version, or this edition of the book, came with a CD that you can also listen to, and there's multiple chapters on the CD as well. So the 733 pages is just the book. There's also a CD where it seems like there's even more chapters on it as well. So it's a very specific information, right? He talks about the theory of preferred stocks, things to look for in them, guaranteed securities, protective covenants and remedies of senior security holders. Like he gets very specific, right? That sort of thing. The third part is senior securities with speculative features. So like privileged issues, that sort of thing. Part 4, theory of common stock investment, the dividend factor. There's 4 different chapters on that. The theory that he has behind investing in common stock, looking at dividends, and then other stuff more in depth. looking at actual balance sheets. So like he's like talking specifically about looking at the actual finances of the companies too. A lot of fundamental analysis, not just looking at stock charts. I don't think there's really any of that in here from what I remember, at least not in depth. It's more balance sheet and income account analysis and that sort of thing, right? Is mostly what this is for. So looking at like the earnings of a stock or of a company, things to look for in the income account that could be misleading, and what they would mean, capitalization structure, a lot about that. Looking at the earnings record and not just the past couple years, like decades worth, and then how it's gone over decades, that sort of thing. Looking more in the actual balance sheet, you can find actual like balance sheet analysis, the significance of book value, just to give a couple things, current asset value, that sort of thing, liquidating value. Obviously being very, very superficial. It's a big book, so I'm not going to read it. But part 7, let's see, additional aspects of security analysis, and then discrepancies between price and value, which is really what you're kind of trying to exploit, right, with value investing, is you're determining and doing all this research and analysis to find the fundamental value per whatever your metrics are, whether they be the same as Graham and Dodd or not, at least using them as a kind of guide for that. And then determining, okay, if this were whatever you determine as fair value, right, from your research, and then determining that is this stock or company or bond, whatever, this security, over or underpriced, right? And so you're trying to find underpriced securities with respect to your kind of criteria, right? And then looking at that in the whole market itself. He also talks about stock option warrants, that sort of thing. Corporate pyramiding is in that part, and other things. And then there's one chapter on global value investing, right, which doesn't have as much, right? And it looks like there's mostly just a introduction from one of the, or commentary from one of the guys who came in, Thomas A. Russo, and then the appendix is pretty much part of that as well, it seems. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. It takes a long time to read. It can be rather dry, but it's kind of the point. It's the very, like, if you're serious about trying to understand like the actual fundamentals of a company, of what you're putting your money into and that sort of thing, and learning from, I guess, one of the fundamental greats in the space, then it's something you have to read and get over. Basically like any college textbook, right? That being said, from the people I've listened to who have referred to this book or have recommended it, right? There's the cover again, at least in my version. They've read it multiple times, and legitimately studied it and that sort of thing. Like this, yeah, there's lots of charts. He gives examples of actual like balance sheets, income accounts, and that sort of thing. Like I went through and like with whatever he was talking about in the actual commentary part of it, and then with the example kind of balance sheet or chart or whatever table, insert whatever the graphic happened to be, go in and like highlight what he was talking about so I could visibly see and understand what was going on, which was pretty helpful, at least for me. I'm very visual in that respect. But anyways, that being said, I'll put a link to whatever the newest edition of this book is at the time of this video, 6th or 7th edition, in the description below so you guys can find it. I'll put cards for more book reviews. You can find that playlist on the end screen, and then also the Intelligent Investor probably in that one. or something. I don't remember if it switches it for me or not in terms of perspective, but it'll be in one of the corners. But yeah, I'm gonna leave this one here, so hope to see you guys on one of those.